it is October already. My goodness gracious. All right. So here we go. I had something that was on my mind today. I wanted to talk to y'all about it because I can't stop thinking about it and I don't have anybody else to talk to about it. So I actually noticed when I talk to my friends, my Gen Z peers, about money, a lot of them say something along the lines of like, bro, I make 50K, 60K, 80K, whatever. I make 50K a year, right? But the average home price where I am is like 8 times my annual income pre-taxed. So, we're not even talking about paying taxes on the actual house. Like, just in order to purchase it in full, it would take 8 years of me spending $0 on anything else. No living expenses, no nothing. And like, how do you expect for me, someone that's like me, to be able to afford a home or to be able to live the same kind of lifestyle that my parents lived or that my grandparents lived, right? Like, I'm working, but even they got to see kind of a return on their money. They got to see their wealth grow, but it feels like every time I try to take a step forward, there's something else that's like holding me back, and I don't know. So I'm trying to figure out how to flip my bread quickly. They're always coming and talking to me and saying, Hunter, do you know a way I can like make my money 10x over the next week or month or year or whatever? I need 1,000% returns. I need X or Y or Z, right? I need to do something to actually be able to afford this lifestyle, the social contract that was told to me growing up, right? And it's kind of interesting. If you see me looking down here, I've got some images now. We're upgrading now. This is a high quality production. But what's interesting to me and what I've observed is that there's kind of this standard normal distribution thing going on. So you have people who are on the left side of the curve, or I should put my hands here, on the left side of the curve, who are engaging in things like 0 day to expiration options. They're YOLOing, Kalshi contracts, people who are chasing meme stocks. Oh my God, everybody and their mama knows someone who's bought a parlay, right? And doing all their sports betting, or prop bets, or playing the lottery if you're older. Because I don't know, maybe there's older people who are into parlays, but I see a lot of older people, like when I go to the gas station and I'm getting like a protein shake or something, and they're like, yeah, give me like 12 of those tickets. I'm like, oh, so I guess there are still people that play the lottery, and it's not just people in California. It's just kind of surprising. On the right side of the curve, right? There we go. On the right side of the curve, you have also got the same people, same kind of people that are saying, yeah, there's a problem, but instead of them going for like lottos and YOLOing positions, they're gold bugs. They're buying Bitcoin, right? And on the left side, you've got people who are in altcoins, but on the right side, in my opinion, and I think you'll find that time will also confirm my opinion, Bitcoiners are definitely over here, as far as wisdom goes. They understand, like, hey, gold, Bitcoin, skilled options traders, because it is a skill, you can make money in the markets through trading, but there's a learning curve, right? So they are sitting on the opposite end of the spectrum, and they're saying, yeah, we do have a problem. So everybody, regardless of where they fit on this big, bell curve, everybody is saying, yeah, we've got an issue here. So, like, where do we go from here? What's happening? What is this phenomenon that we're seeing? And this brings me to the topic of conversation for today, and that is financial nihilism. Okay, so first of all, big shout out to Nicholas Pardini. He does a great job of talking about and explaining financial nihilism in much the same way. Like, I got the images that I'm going to show you here from him. He is so good with data, and I just want to kind of synthesize it and make it a little less information heavy, bogging you down, and kind of really bring it into reality for you, right? So let's kind of talk about it from the top. So what has happened in the modern world, I'm going to say, when I say the modern world, excuse my, ignorant American perspective, but I'm talking about America. So in the modern American world, what you're seeing largely is generation after generation, mostly starting with the millennials, but especially with Gen Z, because we're not afraid to say anything about it, that they're looking and they're saying, you know what, assets really got scooped up by like Gen X and boomers, and millennials and us and eventually Gen Alpha, we're not really ever gonna get financially ahead. And even like less than ahead, like it's hard to even get to like the baseline. Housing, the stock market's valuations, other traditional wealth building avenues, which I'll talk about all these things as we get further into the video, but it's getting out of reach, and this is getting kind of crazy, and I don't really think I fit into this system anymore. Like I kind of want to opt out, and this is the whole entire idea of financial nihilism. So let's take it from the top, right? When it comes to gambling and speculation, there's been an enormous boom, right? So gambling companies, you're seeing them at an all-time like high, record-breaking revenues. They're making all this money despite the fact that we're in a shaky economy. I think jobs data from August came out a few hours ago, and they had reported that it was like plus 52,000 or 54,000, and then they revised it and it was actually down 3,000. So the economy is shaky. The data is not good. Things are really rough right now, right? But despite all of that, despite the multitude of issues that exist with the macro world right now, these sports betting companies are making so much money. And it's not just sports betting. Like there's, a million different things that are booming right now, which we'll touch upon. But like there's a surge in risky betting, parlays and prop bets, right? Arguably the riskiest kind of bets that you could take besides taking, lottery gambling odds, right? So what's the psychology here? Like, why would somebody do that? They're just like, you might as well open your wallet up and drive down 75 and like go wee and let all the bills fly out and all your cards fly out. Well, the way that I've had it explained to me whenever I've talked to like my brother's so big on parlays and he hits on them, I'm not gonna lie. And it's hard, right, to convince someone when they've made, kind of significant, not super significant, but good enough money that they can like, their options are more open and available. It's hard to convince them that it's not a wise form of investing. I don't even want to call it investing. But from what I've understood from him, from my friends, from his friends, and just people that I've spoken to in passing, it seems like it's kind of like this, right? You are down to your last $50, right? You're already paycheck to paycheck. It's already, you're running out of money before you run out of month, and you're just like, ugh. It's the same old situation. And you ask yourself, well, I could take this $50 and I could, I could hold on to it. Maybe I'll get myself a couple of Chipotle bowls this week. Cool deal. My life is relatively unchanged. If I spend it and I, lose it, I could put it into a bet. I could do whatever. But I could put it into a bet and it could flip into $25,000. And now all of a sudden, right, I've gone from the bottom half of Americans to, I think only about 20% of Americans have $25,000 liquid in their possession, period. So like I've immediately jumped from the bottom to honestly, the upper quartile, which is pretty great, right? And this logic is like, I can take this asymmetric bet, a lateral move where if I lose that $50, my life is not any different. I'm in the same position. I'm still just as broke. Or I can hit and all I got to do is hit once. It only takes one, right? And this logic is so pervasive amongst, especially my generation, Gen Z. And it's the same thing on the investment side, like on trading, right? Pre-pandemic in 2016, actually, options 0-day to expiration options volume actually only made up about 5% of the total market's volume, which is kind of insane because last year in 2024, 0-day, we're not talking about, the people that are buying leaps or quarterly contracts, or even just trading weeklies. We're talking about 0 day. You're buying it, it's expiring the same day. Over 50% of the options volume last year was 0 day to expiration options. Do you genuinely in your heart of heart believe that there was a fundamental change in 0 day to expiration options? Or do you believe that this is a symptom of a generation of people or multiple generations of people all realizing at the same time and all partaking at the same time in riskier behavior because they realize and they see from people who did manage to beat the odds that, hey, this made a remarkable difference in their life. I can spare X amount of dollars each and every month and keep playing this and spinning the wheel until I hit, and it makes a great difference in my life. Otherwise, I'm gonna just be in the same situation. It's a lateral move, right? This is driven by the desire for returns, y'all. That's the whole point. They're not looking for long-term stability anymore because that is gone. That was gone, honestly, in the 70s, right? We've had so many crises that have happened now, like between the 70s up until now, and so much money printing and debasement of currency. It doesn't make sense. The game is not played the same. And if you do play the conventional game and you get conventional results, well, it's conventional results plus the impacts of inflation, which in reality becomes like less than conventional, right? So that's not what people want. They don't want that. And you see it even with meme stocks. It's not just 0 day to expiration. Man, oh my God. I was so glad to see, when was that? 2023, 2022. I think it might have been 2022 when everybody thought everything was going to be a short squeeze. Short squeeze. Meme stocks, AMC, GME. Like, oh my goodness. We've lost the plot of the Benjamin Graham methodology, right? Where, you're value investing. It's gone. It's absolutely gone. Now, in today's market, when you're talking to people who like meme stocks and who are speculating, because that's what it is, it's speculating on meme stocks, they're all about the whole number go up. There is no fundamental. It doesn't matter. The whole movement of meme stocks was based off of the fact that there was no fundamental to it, and it was all purely just emotional speculation going in. And don't get me wrong, please don't think that I'm saying that those people don't deserve to, stick it to the man one good time. Nobody loves to see it get stuck to the man quite like Hunter Colley does. But when we're talking about, the mental attitude of a whole generation, things can get dicey because by nature, these speculative investments are meant for you to lose. The sellers are the ones that are winning. It's really difficult. So this attitude of, risk be damned. People want that quick win to achieve the middle class life. Literally, we're not talking about a penthouse in Miami with a hot girlfriend with a BBL. We're talking about middle America, King of the Hill, Richardson, Texas. Like, we're talking about, and honestly, not even Richardson, like Mesquite, right? Basic, average, you know what I'm saying? You live in a house and you don't worry that bullets are going to fly through your kid's bedroom, and they got a school that's 3 miles away that if you wanted to send them to a public school, it's actually not so horrible, right? Basic. The same kind of lifestyle that you grew up in, most likely, if you are middle class, right? That's what people are going for. They're trying to risk it to get the biscuit, which is an average life. And that's a really sad thing, right? It's a difficult thing to cope with. And a lot of people, school's not going to teach you how to cope with that idea. We talk about all the time on this channel. I will continue to talk about the fact that school has it all backwards, right? You sit down for a test and they say, hey, listen, actually, before you even sit down for the test, they tell you this is what you're testing on. You're going to read this material. You're going to take these quizzes. You're going to study, and you're going to do homework. And then we're going to set this piece of paper down in front of you. You're going to take it, and we're going to give you a letter grade, and it's going to tell you whether or not you are a freaking idiot or you know exactly what we're talking about, and we can move on to the next topic. Life is the exact opposite. The test comes first in life, right? Test comes first. You got to figure it out. You haven't, unless you've studied or you took the time to get wisdom from somebody who's been there. Sorry, sucks to be you. And then afterwards, when the fallout happens of the decision that you made, you have to look at all the broken pieces, or maybe it's a beautiful fixed, a gorgeous thing. But you have to look at what you got left over and synthesize what happened and how you could have tackled this better the next time that you face it, if you ever do. And that is wisdom, right? So we're not taught this wisdom in school or really anywhere unless we have somebody in our life that really loves us and cares for us and is teaching us about money and how to avoid this same rat race that, golly, at least 60% of Americans are going through right now, and entire generations of Americans, both in the workforce and up and coming into the workforce, are experiencing. So what's the root cause, Hunter? Like, what's really going on? Well, housing. Let's talk about housing first, right? Let's pull up a couple things here. Boop. So this is the world's least, oh my goodness gracious, I hope that didn't just fuck everything up. Sorry. So this is the least visible chart you will ever see in your life. And I'm sorry that it's so blurry. I pulled it. I did everything I could. But basically what you need to understand about this chart is that this little bubble here is, or little bubble here, I don't know if you can see my cursor, is where baby boomers bought their homes. Okay, so this area is all where they were buying their house, and this represents the valuation relative to their income. So the baby boomer generation alongside Gen X bought their houses at about 4.5 times their annual income. Okay, so then they got their houses, they're living life, they're paying on it, everything is looking good, adjustable rate mortgages happen, and boom, the subprime mortgage crisis fuels a massive bubble, right? So, boom, housing, the values are going up like crazy, everything is insane, they're raking in extreme amounts of wealth, and then it bursts, right? And then after the burst happens, let me see, yeah, right about there, you can see that millennials, the average millennial turns 25, right? They turn 25. So what happens there? Well, it's kind of difficult because they pick up their homes at about 5.5 times their annual incomes, okay? So, yeah, you know what I'm saying? It's getting worse. It's getting worse and worse, right? So no one is having a good time trying to pick up a home because every generation that follows the previous generation has it a little bit worse off and a little bit worse off. And then eventually, right, by the time that Gen Alpha is 25, my God, I don't even want to speculate, right? Because when COVID-19 happened and the Fed printed off, $6 trillion, that led to housing prices reaching 7.5 times annual incomes, right? So when I told you about earlier, my homies who are making 50K, and they're saying, yeah, it's 8 times my income. Yeah, if you're making, I think the median at the time was around $70,000. Yeah, that's 7.5 times. Like, that's, ooh-wee, y'all. Ooh-wee. Ooh-wee. Hot dog. That is extraordinarily difficult, right? And so, you start looking at 8x income versus, that 4 to 5 that boomers had to, or that boomers got to pick up their homes at. You add on the global financial crisis for the millennials, right, which gave temporary affordability, but then the lending standards became super tight, and it just, when you're just entering into the workforce, you look like a ninja too, right? No income, no job or assets. You're just a kid with a suit that doesn't fit trying to go in there and ask for a loan. So it wasn't ideal, right? And on top of that, maybe, you're like, okay, well, real estate, come on, that's a cheap shot. Talk about something else. Okay, well, let's talk about the stock market then, right? Forward PE ratios pre-pandemic on the S&P was like 14, 15, right? Right now, it's sitting in the upper teens to low 20s was like last year. And I think even at one point last year, we got all the way up to 25. So for those of you who don't understand what a PE is, a PE ratio, it's price to earnings. Okay, so the higher that the price is relative to earnings, right, that means that your future expected return collapses. So right now we're buying at the highest valuations that we've seen in decades, right? The stock market's hitting all-time highs like every few weeks. So buying at today's high valuations means lower long-term gains in the market compared to previous decades, right? And you say, well, I was a little bit busy being 4 years old and finger painting in preschool. I didn't have the ability to buy. That's what I'm saying. Like this is the argument that a lot of the younger generations are making. It's like, I was a child. I couldn't have, even if I wanted to. And my family members were trying to stay afloat. We were in the middle class, and the middle class was dwindling and dwindling. It's still dwindling. And you say, okay, well, that's also a cheap shot, Hunter. Well, bonds, like, are you dead ass? Like, are we really about to sit here and say, well, bonds could have made the difference, and you could own a home if you just bought bonds? No, I'm not even gonna entertain that as a conversation, right? It would say, well, what about commodities? You read Hot Commodities by Jim Rogers. You should know about commodities. These are great. Commodities are awesome, but you're talking to somebody who's down to their last $50. They're not going to be able to afford a futures contract, and they might not want that volatility anyway. Yeah, they're speculating and they're willing to let it go to zero for a small amount of money, but they would have to take out a loan for, tens of thousands of dollars. And if they get liquidated, like, that's yet another monkey on their back that they've got to carry around and figure out how to deal with, right? And so when all of those things are combined with student loan debt that is, up to their freaking ears, and they've got to pay on it until they're middle aged, and you've got, stagnant wages due to really inflation, right? And man, oh man, just and on top of that, right, the whole traditional wisdom that they're hearing from their elders saying, well, why don't you just save your money in a savings account, and you can invest some money too. Like, the playbook is broken. All of those things combined to just like, it's like rage baiting entire generations of people and saying, oh, it's not a problem, everything is fine, right? And people are just sick of it. They're sick of being in a situation where the conventional wisdom that used to work, when they bring up valid arguments about, hey, like, our currency has been debased now, we're talking about this started a long time ago, 110 years, 115 years ago, but in reality, like, the real prominent impact was felt starting in the 70s all the way up till now. This is like 50, 60 years worth of buildup in the making. They kicked the can down the road, and back in, the 90s and the early 2000s, it just was a topic of conversation about, hey, it'll happen probably in the 20s or the 30s, but that's in the future. We don't have to worry about that. The music is still playing. The music has stopped. Like, it's getting real quiet, and the lights are turning on, and you found out you were dancing with the ugliest mofo in the club, and it's just not a good time, right? So, before I really, keep moving forward into the psychology side, I already know that there's going to inevitably be a boomer that's going to hop in here that's going to say, oh, Hunter, you're telling me all this stuff about, let me pull up a chart here, because this is what really drove it home for me. I don't know if you can see that. They're going to say, well, we had high rates too, and it wasn't easy. Please don't misunderstand me, boomers and Gen X. I am not your enemy. I'm not here to cast any negative light on you guys. If it was happening for us, right, and we had sky high interest rates, but asset prices were, nice and cheap, and our purchasing power was still strong, you bet your sweet ass I would be doing the same thing that you were doing at my age. By no doubt. I will never blame you for taking advantage of the situation that's in front of you, because what I'm about to advise to my generation and to the people who are missing out right now and who are sick and tired of being sick and tired, I'm about to give them the same kind of advice that I would be giving to you guys if the deck was shuffled and stacked differently, okay? So please don't think this, right? And like this image that I just threw up here on the screen, this is the median household income in shares of S&P, like what you could, off of the median household income, how many shares of the S&P you could purchase, right? So this right here was the boomers. These are my boomer buddies, my Gen X buddies, old Gen X buddies. So they could purchase or buy 218 shares of the S&P 500 back in their heyday when they were my age, right? Mid-20s. And now we got this data goes up to 2023. I'm sure it's even lower. But now in 2023, you could only purchase 18 shares of the S&P off of the median household income. Okay, so do you understand, right? We talked about the wheel strategy in one of my earlier videos. 100 shares of the S&P gives you freedom to be able to write options and to be able to make passive income off of it. They could write 2 of those off of the median income. Right now, you couldn't even think about writing an option contract with the median household income in shares, expressed in shares of the S&P. Like, it's not the same game, right? These numbers aren't meant to make you feel bad. They're meant to bring awareness to how dire the situation is for young people, and getting upset with young people that they're not motivated to partake in society as a whole when they see these numbers, and they, worse than just seeing it, they feel it, right? They're living through it and trying to navigate it and juggle like 150 different things at once. Like, I don't want you to take it as a slight on you, because yeah, I mean, there was some policy that could have been voted in a different way to make the outcomes different, but red or blue, the currency's been debased, like, regardless, right? Like, this, no matter what the policy is that's being implemented or who the current it guy is in office, like, the problem was still pervasive and it kept building and nobody brought a solution. So it's not a blame game on y'all, on a generation. It's not. This is a structural problem, right? We're talking about different macro starting points, okay? We're not talking about, oh, you're just trying to shit on boomers. No, absolutely not. That's not what's happening. High rates that you guys had suppressed asset prices. And, if you were able to purchase in the 70s, whenever Paul Volcker, was doing what he was doing, raising interest rates up super high to, we were experiencing stagflation. So this is a whole new can of worms, but it sets the stage, sets the field for the 80s and 90s booms that we did see. You know what I'm saying? And right now we're in a situation where it's just going to be an inflation spiral, right? We're already talking about cutting rates. Like, it's yikes, right? What else do I have here? We talked about average 0 day to expiration. Look at that dramatic change. We talked about the real estate. Oh, we didn't talk about real estate by age, but you know what? That's okay. I think I've driven my point home here. Let's talk about, for a minute, the psychology shift, okay? Because I think this is more important than showing you a bunch of graphs that will make you fall asleep sitting upright at your computer, right? So the psychological shift to financial nihilism is entirely built off of a compressed time preference for results, because people are aging out of the social contract, right? They say, oh, I need my returns now. If I don't get them now, I'm never going to get them. And this is a problem, right? And if, like I said, losing that $50 is nothing and winning $25,000 is everything, the way that we've been educated, people are saying, well, doesn't that seem like a smart bet? Doesn't that seem rational? And it's the rationalization of gambling that has brought people to financial nihilism and the behaviors that they're taking, right? Where instead of going for the incremental gains, they're willing to just throw caution to the wind and say, hey, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to take the 0 day to expiration. We're just going to go for it. Like, why not? Lateral moves happen every single day, but an asymmetric move is going to change the game for me. Let's make it happen, right? So you say, well, Hunter, what's the alternative? Because right now you sound like a freaking doomer and I'm not feeling the vibes. This is not how you usually come in to talk to us on here. This sucks, right? Like, what the hell? And I have good news for you. Okay, I really do. And hear me out. Bitcoin exists. I know. You're like, Hunter, come on. You said the same thing every video so far. You've literally said the same thing. I know, but here, just listen. It is the penultimate form of protest in a system that forces you to have to risk it all and play the game of like the currency debasement, right? Like that's what the game is. It's like, hey, can you beat the clock while the currency is being debased? Like it's sand in your fingers just slipping through the cracks. Like it's horrible, right? And it's a sovereign store of value. So to the people that, you know, buy Bitcoin, they've opted out of the system. They're saying no more. I'm done. This is not a game that I'm interested in playing. I'm not playing it anymore. And you have fun. I will no longer be doing it, right? They've opted out of the system and they're simply just waiting for the rest of the world to be able to catch up and understand, hey, this is the elephant in the room. Let's acknowledge it. Let's talk about it, right? The quality of life as a whole has degraded, and the potency of all that life could be, I don't get to experience that because it's been stripped away at the hands of a money printer. Like, that's the big elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about, is that, yeah, even the boomers who've made their money and who are sitting really pretty, they still feel the impact of this on a much lesser degree. Sure, if you've got, you know, some form of asset that you can borrow against, then yeah, it's going to be a little different, but everybody's feeling it. Everybody knows. It's just not everybody can verbalize it, right? So if you're a true financial nihilist, and when I say financial nihilist, I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean, if you're a true person who says, I have to make asymmetric bets in order to get the life that I want, and in order for me to be able to, you know, thrive in this world, I have to opt out of the system, you're a true financial nihilist. If you're truly sick of watching each generation get poorer and poorer while everybody else kind of just pretends there's not an issue or gets, you know, defensive whenever it's brought up that they had it a little bit easier than the person before. Because I can tell you right now that I, as a Gen Z person, by the time the end of Gen Alpha enters the workforce, I will have had it easier than they will if we don't stop this train, right? So if you're finally ready to implement the ultimate form of protest, you're tired of looking at these diverging lines, right? You're seeing all this divergence in between the quality of life and, you know, generation after generation, they're just getting worse and worse. Then I implore you to purchase Bitcoin. I really do. Like, I can't give any other advice in good conscience because I know where this is headed based off of reading history, right? Remove yourself from this game bit by bit, little piece by piece, every single month, every single week or 2 weeks or however frequently you're paid, by taking a portion of your paycheck and, you know, your savings that you would set up and using it to purchase some Bitcoin, dude. Like, just put as much money as feasibly possible into Bitcoin, because at the end of the day, all that you're doing when you do that is freezing your purchasing power in time. Imagine how much more powerful today's dollars would be 40 years from now. That's what I'm trying to get you to see. We're stuck on 0 day to expiration options and these, you know, risky sports bets and things. Our time horizon has been shrunk in. Like I told you in the video that I recorded yesterday, the day before, we got to expand our time horizon. We got to look at the bigger picture, right? We're missing the forest because of the trees. We got to look and see what's really in front of us, y'all. This is so serious, and I can't drive this point home quite strongly enough to you, right? The earlier that you come to this realization, the better off your entire existence is going to be, okay? The rest of the world has to catch up. We are still so early. And even though this is the most bullish part of the 4-year seasonality cycle, right? Today's dollars are going to still be worth more than tomorrow's dollars whenever you save them in Bitcoin. If you choose to put them into any other form of asset, understand that every day those dollars are getting weaker. And that's just the way that money is programmed. Okay? So, I don't want you to feel powerless, because if anything, you've got an escape parachute right there. You can jump out of the burning plane and you can touch down on the ground relatively unscathed. Maybe a little PTSD, but relatively unscathed, right? This is your chance. Like, you'll either take it or you won't. So with that, I'm not going to sit here and yammer for 100 more years. You know what to do. You know what to do. And if you don't, hey, leave me a comment down below. Let me know, because I want to make sure that I can help you. This is the whole point of this, was just to talk about financial nihilism, just how interesting it's been talking to my age-based peers and getting their opinions on, how to navigate a system with currency debasement being programmed in, and feeling the impacts of it in a more pronounced way. Because as that printer keeps going, it's just going to get more and more and more prevalent in more aspects of your life. And I'm not saying you're going to have bread lines in the next 10 years, God forbid, but I'm just saying, like, it's happening. There's going to be the have-nots and there's going to be the have-yachts. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a divergence of socioeconomic classes that's happening before our very eyes, man. And like, the middle class is vanishing. It's vaporizing. So you have to decide if you want to stoop down or if you want to rise above. And I think if you've made it this far through the video, that you are planning to, and you will rise above. So with that, wherever you are, whenever you are, however you are, I hope you're well. And that is all I got for you today. And until next time, peace.